Hey, Mike here with Canadian Musician, and we're once again in a kind of stairwell to the side of the Canadian Music Week conference that's going on. And I'm with Daniel and Graham from Surrey, BC's Good for Grapes. Thanks for giving me a bit of your time today, guys.
Thank you.
And so I want to get started off. You guys, the digital copy, I believe, came out in October, and the physical copy is now out of their debut full-length album, Man on the Page. Killer, well, I want to say folk album, and there's definitely a folk element to it, but there's actually something I read that, I forget what it is, it was a newspaper article where it's kind of described you guys' sound as like folk music, but with a rock and roll approach, with kind of the big climatic swells and huge climaxes, which is really just a kind of all-encompassing awesome sound. And right now you guys have, how many is it in the band? 6 guys in the band? Or 6 guys, people in the band, I guess I should say. Yeah. And so I want to know, like, for the songwriting process for the album, when you guys have that much instrumentation going on, is it a collaborative approach? Daniel, do you take the lead? Essentially, how does it work between you guys when you're working out the songs?
Yeah, I mean, like, I usually take the lead, and I'll write the lyrics and the parts kind of beforehand, and I'll usually bring it to Graham, and then bring it to the band, and from there it's kind of like we're all very much from a drama background, so we're all quite dramatic when it comes to the music. So the swells and stuff, and just the dynamics is just something that it's a part of us. So and just I guess we're pretty young and energetic, so that rock kind of sound definitely stems from just like that's just like what we want to play on stage. A lot of what I write is especially on this album, what I was thinking when I was writing is what's this going to look like on stage? What do I want to play on stage? So from there it's just evolves through playing it live.
And the album's now out on Pheromone, which has the Deers, Wilderness in Manitoba, Mokeni. It's pretty stellar label. Essentially, how did that come about? Like, did they approach you guys? How did you guys end up hooking up with them?
We had actually finished the record, and we wanted to release it before the end of 2013, and we didn't know how we were going to do it. We wanted a label. We wanted to do it on a solid independent label, and we had interest from a few, but no one was really like, I find in this business, and a lot of people don't like move forward quickly. But Pheromone was like, hey, we haven't signed an artist in a while because it's just kind of been like it seemed to be like a bit stagnant. But we're excited about you guys, and we want to put out this record when you want to put it out. Like, we want to follow the schedule, and we're just like, yeah. And they're super rad people, so it was an easy choice.
Right on. And when you're playing live, is there much, I guess, improvising, or just kind of, does it differ much from the album? What's your guys' approach when you take these songs out on the road?
And musically, it's all, we've rehearsed these songs 100 times. It's, we're pretty consistent in that. I'd say more where things get improvised on stage is our actions on stage. We like to make it a wild and crazy time, and things happen, that just on the fly. But as far as musically, we like to, it's all very rehearsed.
And for this album, you worked with, I believe it was Colin Stewart as the producer. I guess being in the studio with Colin, essentially, what did he bring to you? Like, how fully formed were the songs when he entered the studio, and was there an element there that he brought to it that, I guess, wouldn't have been there without his say?
I mean, like, we kind of went crazy with we didn't like demo any of the songs, but we went into this album because the first album, right, you don't have any recordings, so you're going in fresh with songs that you've played live 100 times. So we wanted it to sound exactly like we do live. So we made the click tracks, basically. We made these tempo tracks, and we're like, okay, let's map it out according to exactly what we do. So we went and just practiced to those. So we had it pretty much figured out. We had the sheet music for all the other instrumentation. But yeah, Colin, the biggest thing that he brought was he kind of understood that it was our first time in the studio, and he was really like good at showing us the ropes and stuff in the studio. And he did like he came up with like some sweet ideas, like, okay, this song like doesn't need this, or this song like you want to like try adding like some horns, there's like some French horns and stuff, and we're just like, yeah. So he was really good at building on ideas and stuff.
With that being your guys' first time in the studio, or at least recording in a professional studio setup like that, and I believe the name's escaping me, the infamous Vancouver studio, I believe it was, where you guys did the album.
Yeah.
And but being in the studio for the first time, did it change your approach at all? Like you said, Colin would, kind of suggest adding on some horns and that kind of thing. But when you get in the studio, the infinite possibilities that are there sometimes can be overwhelming and sometimes can be inspiration. Did it change your approach at all to it?
Yeah, I think we've had a pretty good learning kind of path about studios, because the first big studio we recorded at was actually here in Toronto. It was at Coalition Studios years ago, and in that case we were completely unprepared, and we kind of learned that we should go into it more prepared. So for this record we went into it as prepared as we thought we could be, and kind of learned that now things can come out in the studio when you are prepared. The studio is very much a place where it's just when you're in all that kind of almost chaos, things can come out and things can change, and that's totally okay. And some bands will just make their albums in the studio, and I think that's really cool. For the next album, I think we're gonna toy a lot, because we actually have a studio at our disposal. Our drummer owns a studio, so I think we're gonna go and really take more of an approach where we're actually demoing a lot and trying new things, kind of in the studio. But we're definitely learning a lot about that process.
Is that to imply that you guys have already started coming up with material for a follow-up? Or
Yeah, definitely.
I guess with that, I don't know how, down the road it will be, or it is at this point. But is there, do you notice a difference in your songwriting and the songs you're producing for a follow-up from what's on Man on the Page?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a good change. I feel like it's kind of just matured more. There are songs on there like Renminbi Tips where I kind of wrote that during the recording process, and Man on the Page was actually written after everything was already recorded. And that kind of points to where I think we're going musically, where the lyrics kind of mean more to the present state of where we're at and where we think the world around us is at. Because those songs on there, I mean, they were written anywhere between 3 years ago, and I mean while we were recording. So I think it's just going to be different in a good way. So we're excited for that.
Awesome. And my last question here, and I'd actually asked this of your fellow British Columbians, Current Swell, when I was talking to them just a few days ago, and another killer folk rock act from BC. And my question is essentially folk music in the history. It's never, it's really God knows how old genre of music, and it's had its, I guess climaxes as far as popularity and that, but it never goes away. Every generation finds folk music, and you guys are young guys. Obviously, you found it. You're bringing it a new sound, but over the last 5 years, the folk sound has really even had another renaissance for the umpteenth time. So, Drew, what is it about folk music that brings every generation in, that makes it constantly appealing, do you think?
I think, I think folk music is, to call it a genre, it's almost like storytelling. It's gonna go, it's that's the base of that kind of storytelling music, I guess you would call it. And those roots that are in it, those chord progressions and stuff, they're the very soul of even pop music, kind of derives from that. So I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think it can go away. And I mean, it's not even so much that it would go away, but that it's just always, its popularity always seems to have a resurgence every so often. It's almost that people, or I guess songwriters in general, or the popular songwriters, kind of understand that is the way it is, and maybe at certain times that'll be more under the magnifying glass, like it is with Mumford and Sons and stuff, where people are man, this is so simple and so awesome and it's great. That's kind of what folk music is. So I think it's just any trend or anything that gets popular, it just kind of comes and goes and people realize it, but folk music is always there. And with that,
I know I said the last one, but I'm just kind of interested with the conversation about folk music. Essentially, what are your influences? Like, do you see a direct influence in your music? People always make comparisons, but for you, essentially, did you have stuff in mind when you were writing and recording?
I think like a lot of like with that record, because I mean some of those songs are like the first folk songs, I guess, folk songs that I wrote, and it's very much influenced by like modern artists that I like. I grew up listening to like Bob Dylan and Simon and Garfunkel and stuff. But I mean, what really made me want to like write music is hearing people now doing it, which was cool. I think that now that record is done and kind of like we're kind of like turning a new chapter, it's more those. Like I'm hugely influenced by Bob Dylan in terms of like writing styles, especially now. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's the biggest change that's happened. I'm kind of like looking back more than looking forward. Yeah. Of course, we do a lot of weird stuff, so can't really be totally credited to like that 60s revival, but still, I mean, like that's definitely at the root of it.
Like I would hear it more in the kind of Rolling Thunder Review era Dylan, that huge, big band style folk. Yeah, exactly. But anyways, guys, Man on the Page from Good for Grapes is out now. Killer folk album and folk rock, whatever we want to term it. Just good music. And it's on Pheromone, like I mentioned. Guys, thanks a lot for joining me. Good luck with the rest of CMW.
Thank you so much.